I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. The election now is 8 days away, and a lot of you have probably voted maybe last weekend or even before that. But as you drop your ballot in the mail or drop box, a fair number of you are wondering, hey, what happens next? You sent us questions, we got answers from an expert, Multnomah County Director of Elections, Tim Scott. Here's our first question from Pat. Please show how our ballot boxes will be protected from people stuffing the boxes. Will they be watched by security? Thanks for that question, Pat. Love that name, by the way. Here's the answer from Tim Scott. Every ballot envelope is mailed with a unique ballot ID and barcode. If the ballot envelope does not contain those features, we will not process the ballot inside. If someone requests a replacement ballot and has two ballots in their possession, only the most recent issued ballot ID is valid. The other one is made invalid at the time of generating the replacement ballot. Sometimes seeing the process helps explain this stuff. Last week, we took a tour of Multnomah County's election headquarters. Here's part of that story that deals with your envelope and how it helps keep the voting system secure. The first stop for your ballot inside Multnomah County election headquarters is this big sorting machine. Elections Director Tim Scott is showing us around. He said people used to do this work, but COVID made that impossible. Federal tax money paid for the $275,000 machine, which now does the job of 24 people.
It's doing several things. The first thing it's doing is it's scanning that barcode.
And what is it telling it? What's the barcode telling it?
That barcode is the unique identifier for this envelope. So this envelope is uniquely identified by the ballot ID. So no one else in this election is going to get that identification number. And that pairs up with the voter. So we know when we scan this ballot, this barcode, we know that that voter has returned a ballot. And if that barcode isn't readable, or it isn't a barcode that's eligible for this election, it's going to get kicked out into the bin number 1. That's where all the rejects go.
Rejections happen for a few reasons. Maybe someone used an envelope from a past election. That's what this is. Or maybe they forgot to sign the outside of the envelope, which is what happened here. In those cases, the voter is contacted and the problem fixed. So you see, it wouldn't really work to stuff the ballot box. We're not just throwing pieces of paper in there that say yes or no. Your ballot is protected by that barcode on your envelope. And no, you can't just create your own barcode. That would be rejected by the sorting machine. If you get one vote, you got to use it right. Tim Scott told me if you have a ballot at home and request a second one because you lost that first one, well, yeah, they'll send you a second ballot, but as soon as they do that, the barcode on that first envelope is canceled. And if you somehow accidentally send the first one in anyway, sorry, gets rejected by the sorting machine. And while we're talking about security, let's remember that not everyone's concerned about it. Chet took me to task last week when I said election security is on everyone's mind these days. He wrote in to say, it is not at the top of everyone's mind. Some of us still believe our elections are safe and secure, and we know there has been no credible evidence of widespread cheating or fraud. Our voting system is fine, but I fear for the country's future with so many people ready to believe empty rumors and lies. Fair enough, Chet. Thanks for the feedback. I really do appreciate it. And he is correct. Despite the former president's lies, there was no widespread voter fraud in the last presidential election. Even his attorney general called some of the claims bull and nonsense. All right, let's move on. What about that signature that you're supposed to put on the outside of the envelope? Several of you had questions about that. Rob wrote in to say they stopped teaching cursive writing some time ago. Young people don't have a cursive signature. How do they deal with that on the ballots? Printed? Here's Tim Scott's answer. Regardless of how the registration card is signed, we can usually make a match to the ballot signature. Usually 99% or more of signatures are matched without follow-up with the voter. Kathy had another signature question. She'd like to know, if a person registered to vote online, how is that person's signature established in order to compare it to the one on the envelope? Tim Scott replies, DMV supplies the signature for voters who registered to vote online or through automatic registration at the DMV. In other words, when you give your signature to get your driver's license, well, the DMV has that on file and they share it with the election folks to verify your signature. And Curtis writes in to ask, people's signature change over time. How do I know my current signature is matching against the one I used when I registered to vote 20 plus years ago? If my current signature does not match, does my vote not count? That's a great question, Curtis. Here's Tim Scott's answer. People's signatures do change over time, but they generally contain a lot of the same characteristics. We can usually make a match based on those similarities. However, if there are not enough similarities to make a match, we will send a letter to the voter with a registration form, and they have 21 days until after the election to return the new registration form with a signature that matches the ballot signature. The majority of people who receive these letters respond, and we are able to count their ballots. So, it doesn't matter if your signature changed over the years or you use block letters or whatever. They can indeed figure it out. And if they can't, they'll get a hold of you. Here's more from that tour that we took at Multnomah County, where that mail sorting machine also plays a key role. The machine also makes sure the signature on the envelope is yours.
So it's scanning that barcode, then it's capturing the signature that's on the envelope, and then that signature is what's used for signature verification against the voter registration signature.
And the computer's doing that?
We do have what we call automatic signature verification, and that's installed on this machine, and that software is set to basically capture 100%. If the signature matches 100%, it's going to say yes, it's good.
Okay, and the point of all that is to make sure that somebody isn't using your name, but it's not you, and they're trying to copy your signature?
That's correct. The signature is one of the primary security features of vote by mail. That's so we can be sure that when we mailed the ballot to you, that we have a relationship with you already because you registered to vote and you gave us a signature. And then when you return that ballot, we're matching the signature from the envelope to the voter registration signature to make sure it's you that voted the ballot.
The reason it's so important to make sure the envelope came from you is that once it's opened up and the ballot is taken out, your ballot joins a sea of others with no way to trace it back to you. Okay, and then is there that same barcode, is that on the ballot that I fill out as well?
No, there is no, in Multnomah County, we don't put unique identifiers on our ballots. So once it comes out of the envelope, it's no longer associated with you. That's why we do so much work to verify that it is you before it comes out of the ballot, or comes out of the envelope.
Okay. So what if I want to go back and verify that my vote was actually counted correctly? Is there a way to do that?
Not currently in Oregon. I mean, we do audits after every election, and you could come witness those audits, but there would be no way to identify your ballot for privacy reasons. There would be no way to verify that your ballot is among the ones that were being audited.
There's more to that report, and you can watch the whole thing. Just go to KGW's YouTube page and look for The Story playlist. Do you have other election-related questions? Send them along. Our email is thestory@kgw.com, or you can call and leave a voicemail on our message machine. The number is 503-226-5090. Now, we want to check in to see how many ballots have been returned so far in both Oregon and Washington. This is something we're going to do each night until the election. We're doing it to give all of us a sense of how many people are actually taking part in this ritual of democracy, and you should. Both states are now giving daily updates on the numbers of ballots returned, and they started about a week ago, so tonight we have 6 days in this batch we're going to talk about. Let's start with a statewide look at Oregon. The numbers updated this morning. There are nearly 3 million registered voters in this election. So far, just over 400,000 ballots have been filled out and sent back to the respective county elections headquarters, and that makes up about 14% of all the ballots in the Beaver State. We're also going to break down the top 3 and bottom 3 counties that have returned ballots so far based on the percentage of ballots turned. As a disclaimer, we're still 8 days from the election. For a while now, the smaller counties are going to show up in the top 3. And that's because fewer people are needed to make up a larger percentage since the populations there are smaller. Follow me? So here are the top 3 Oregon counties so far. Wheeler County takes top spot with more than 27% of the ballots returned. Congratulations. They have 1,079 eligible voters and 299 have turned in their ballots. Next is Lake County, where exactly 1/4 or 25% have mailed or dropped off their ballot. That makes up about 1,400 people. Coming in third is Gilliam County, where 24% of eligible voters have returned their ballots, making up 341 votes. And here are the bottom 3 counties in Oregon. This is based solely on percentage of ballots returned. Third to last, Yamhill County, where nearly 11% are done with their ballots. Next, Multnomah County, with nearly 10% of its 565,000 ballots returned. And now the county with the lowest percentage of ballots returned, a drum roll please, Polk County. Thoughtful folks out there, though. They're thinking about their choices, I'm sure. Just 6.4% of it, more than 6.4% of its more than 62,000 ballots have been mailed or dropped off. Now let's take a trip north over the border and check on the great state of Washington. Their numbers update weekday evenings, so today we're looking at data that was reported Friday night. Washington has nearly 4.8 million voters in this election. So far, more than 650,000 ballots have been returned, making up just over 13.5%. Now that's just a shade lower than Oregon's total, though Washington has 1.8 million more voters than here in Oregon. Here are the counties where the largest percentage of votes have been returned. First is Jefferson County with 28% of ballots finished up. Next is Pacific County at 27%. Third is Lincoln County at 24%. And here are the bottom three Washington state counties. Okanogan is sitting just under 10%. Stevens and Grant counties are tied for last at 7.1%. By the way, Clark County, Washington, near the bottom of that list with just 10.6% of the ballots returned so far. Come on, you guys. It's important to note that these results are unofficial, but it's what the counties and the state is reporting so far. So how do you feel about voting early? Are you someone? Do someone you know? Do you get your ballots in as soon as possible, or do you wait until Election Day? Let us know. Send us an email at thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Now let's stay in the state of Washington for just a moment longer, because 13,000 people who previously could not vote now can this election. And they're all people who've served time behind bars. It's thanks to a new law that went into effect this year, and it will allow more and more former inmates to vote in years to come. Julie Calhoun with our sister station in Seattle talked with one man who was able to vote for the first time in years.
I was actually incarcerated at the age of 17.
Cyril Walrand spent 17 years incarcerated and released August 1st.
The very next day, to register to vote and to vote in the primaries, really gave me a sense of connectivity within my community, where I realized that it's not about just talking and having all these different opinions, but really I'm making my voice and my vote count.
Walrand worked for that day even inside prison, working with organizations like the Voting Rights Restoration Coalition.
We have an opportunity of making sure that our voices are heard and that we are doing the things that are necessary, to make sure all of our lives, are being, represented. That's what true equity looks like.
Under the new law that went into effect January of this year, it automatically restores voting rights to people who have been released from prison after committing felonies, even if they're on parole, meaning thousands will get the chance to vote for the first time.
The shift is that we're moving away from the kind of forever labeling people that have past convictions and treating folks as outcasts for the rest of our lives or their lives, to welcoming people home when they get released.
Christopher Poulos with the Department of Corrections knows how that feels. He served 3 years in federal prison and says the ability to vote reduces recidivism.
When people do really feel included, the chances are that they're going to act the same way and act positively in our communities.
And a full circle moment for Walrand, helping others cast their ballot.
Just feeling so empowered in that moment, and just hoping that others who are also system impacted are able to feel empowered by their opportunity of voting as well.
Still to come on The Story. The only Portland City Council race on the ballot next week is getting nasty. The Renee Gonzalez campaign sending a cease and desist letter to Joanne Hardesty's campaign over a recent mailer. And it comes as the Gonzalez campaign deals with vandalism at its downtown Portland office.
Big rock came in here, shattered this whole thing.
We are hearing from both candidates when The Story returns. Now to more on the only Portland City Council race on the ballot in 8 days. Commissioner Joanne Hardesty and her challenger Renee Gonzalez. It's been a pretty tight race so far, and now the pair are at odds over a mailer distributed by the Hardesty campaign. The Gonzalez team has gone as far as sending a cease and desist letter to Hardesty, and they're wondering if the mailer was behind a driving force behind the vandalism to his campaign office over the weekend. Mike Benner explains.
Big rock came in here, shattered this whole thing.
Renee Gonzalez gives us a look at the damage to his campaign office in downtown Portland. He says it happened either late Saturday night or early Sunday morning during a direct action protest event.
It's a bit of a downward spiral in the political rhetoric in the Northwest. You know, this didn't happen 2 or 3 years ago.
Gonzalez can't help but wonder if the vandalism is at all connected to a mailer sent out by his opponent in the race for a seat on Portland's City Council.
I honestly can't tell you definitively, won't know. There's an ongoing investigation.
The mailer distributed by Joanne Hardesty's campaign suggests Gonzalez violated campaign finance rules by getting discounted rent on his campaign office downtown. By the way, a judge has since said that's just not the case. The mailer also suggests Gonzalez surrounds himself with Republican consultants whose clients include Ted Cruz and Marjorie Taylor Greene.
So our consultants took one look at the mailer and said this is patently false in a number of ways, and that it doesn't feel like they're playing by the same set of rules that we are in terms of honesty in mailers.
And that explains why Gonzalez's campaign sent a cease and desist letter to Hardesty's campaign, calling the mailer untrue and defamatory, adding that it's caused Gonzalez severe emotional distress and obstructed his professional prospects and desire to represent Portlanders.
Voters are paying attention, and voters will not be distracted by political theater.
Commissioner Hardesty calls the cease and desist letter she received from Gonzalez's campaign a campaign stunt.
I think voters will see this for what it is. It's a distraction. And I'm just going to keep talking to voters because there's only 8 more days to get those ballots in. And living in a state that's the easiest state in the country to vote in, I want to focus on people turning in their ballot.
A sentiment echoed by her challenger, Renee Gonzalez.
We're just going to try and turn it back and stay focused on Portlanders.
I'm Mike Benner for KGW News.
If you've not voted yet and want to hear more from these two before you do, check out Straight Talk with Laurel Porter this coming Friday. Both candidates will be here for a final chat ahead of Election Day. Straight Talk airs on Fridays at 7 p.m. Still ahead on the story. It was another busy weekend here at KGW that included a championship for the Portland Thorns. We're taking a look at what you may have missed coming up right after this.
On Friday afternoon, Hudson was unloading groceries from her car, parked outside her North Portland apartment building.
I left her in there. A homeless person came up, was standing near the corner by where my car was. I didn't think anything of it.
The keys were in the front, the dog in the back. When she wasn't looking, someone jumped in and drove off.
I see it driving away, and then I'm screaming to stop. And then I'm in a panic. I don't know what to do. I was dumbfounded.
Portland police took to Twitter asking for help in the search. On Saturday night, they finally found the car and Mimi, who was luckily unharmed.
Thorns watch parties ruled the day at the Sports Bra. So crowded, they put a sign on the door telling people to find other spots to watch the championship match. Those who got inside got there really early.
2 o'clock this afternoon so that we could sit at the bar and have great seats in front of the TV.
We made it in for a short time before the match started. Senator Ron Wyden got in and cheered with everyone else. A few miles away at Hopworks, the place was packed for a watch party. Every TV on the match, and the fans worked up from the opening whistle. And when Sophia Smith scored the opening goal, the fans erupted in celebration.
Portland wins 2-0. The Thorns are your 2022 NWSL champions. The franchise's third, more than any team in the league. Through all the adversity, it was the love of the game that got the players through the tough times.
For me personally, soccer was like an escape from all the things going on. So I just look forward to going to practice every day, seeing my teammates, and that was kind of how I navigated it, is I always had that to look forward to.
I mean, they're amazing. They've just been awesome for so long, and to finally come out on national primetime sports, who's not excited about this stuff? Come on.
We deserved it. The girls deserved it. We're all super excited for them. Yes, they worked for it.
It looks like a blast. And don't forget our free newsletter. It's a great way to catch up on what you missed here on the story. Just scan the QR code there on your screen. It'll take you to a link and you can sign up. You get an email from the team at the beginning of the week where we highlight our biggest stories over the last week. All right, keep sending your questions and comments to thestory@kgw.com. It is Halloween after all. We have a great look at some old footage from the KGW Vault coming up right after this. We're heading into the KGW Vault tonight for a look at some fun Halloween footage from years past. This clip is from Halloween night back in 1977. Here's a spooky fact for you older folks. 1977 was 45 years ago. Either way, KGW has always had some fun on Halloween. And this morning we were able to dig up a segment from 1982 featuring some grade school kids down in Karis, Oregon in Clackamas County. Here's reporter John Tuttle.
Karis, a little Oregon town that even most natives have never heard of. The sounds of Halloween are already descending on Karis. Not these sounds. We stole them off a record. In Karis, the sounds are real and you hear them at the Karis school.
Live from Transylvania, it's the Punk Ghouls!
Those of you who had social obligations or had to work and missed the assembly at Karis grade school this morning missed the concert. These are clay instruments, flutes, saxophones, trumpets, rattles, and simple hooters, all made by the students and played at what a teacher acknowledges turned into a diabolic uproar. The true horror is yet to come. Any parent who's had a grade schooler with a noisemaker knows what comes next when school is out and these instruments go home. Across the hills tonight and tomorrow and for the weeks to come, these sounds will echo day and night. So be warned this Halloween, beware of Karis. Leaving town as quickly as possible, John Tuttle, News 8.
I think those kids are all in their 50s now. Happy Halloween. That's the end of our show. Thanks for watching. And remember the story, our story, well, that never ends. I'll see you tomorrow.